The Appalachian Trail Conservancy says that violence rarely breaks out among the hikers covering the thousands of miles along the way, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. In May 2019, when James Jordan stabbed and killed Ronald Sanchez in Virginia, it made the war veteran the 10th person to be murdered along the trail in 45 years. The agency had been keeping track of that sort of thing. According to the New York Times, hikers had already been spreading warnings to each other about Jordan, who had been harassing people along the way. He pulled a knife and an axe on hikers in Tennessee, and in Virginia, he told 4 hikers that he was going to burn them alive in their tents. He pulled a knife on them too, but they escaped. A woman who was camping in the same area as Sanchez was stabbed by Jordan, but managed to escape and then, with the help of other hikers, walked 6 miles to get help. Jordan was arrested and charged with Sanchez's murder, but was ultimately found not guilty by reason of insanity. Both prosecutors and the defense agreed, saying Jordan could not appreciate the nature and quality of his actions, and therefore he met the legal standard for insanity. In 2006, a couple known only as Brandon and Gina told D Magazine the story of their 5th date, and to say it was harrowing is a massive understatement. The goal, they said, was to take a tram to the top of Mount San Jacinto and hit the bar there. Easy enough, right? But after an impromptu snowball fight got them turned around, they went from being surrounded by other people to try to determine which direction voices were coming from to completely and hopelessly lost. With no supplies or gear, they found themselves facing nights where the temperatures dipped nearly to freezing. Friday turned into Monday, and that's when they came across a campsite. Here, they found personal effects, including a driver's license that gave them the name of the man the gear belonged to, John Donovan, and a journal outlining his last wishes. It ended with "Goodbye and I love you all." In the journal, Donovan wrote that he was trapped in a gorge, and Brandon and Gina quickly realized that they, too, were now trapped between the mountain they just ascended and a 300-foot waterfall. However, they had Donovan's gear, which included matches that they used to start a fire. This ultimately attracted the attention of one of the helicopters that were out looking for them. They were both rescued, and when they recounted the story of the campsite, a team returned to recover Donovan's body. As he requested in his journal, Donovan was buried in a military cemetery in Virginia. The Grand Canyon is one of the most breathtaking wonders of the American landscape, and according to Podium Runner, there are 54 trails hikers can opt to take when they visit. There's only one, though, where hikers have reported seeing and hearing the Wailing Woman. So many people have seen her, from day hikers to park rangers, that it's kind of gotten to the point where even skeptics need to wonder if there's something going on here. She's always reported to be wearing a white dress decorated with blue flowers and has a scarf covering her hair. The Wailing Woman is said to be the spirit of a young woman who moved to the Grand Canyon in the late 1920s. She, her husband, and their young son lived at the newly built Grand Canyon Lodge until tragedy tore their little family apart. Father and son were out hiking when a storm swept through, and both were killed in a fall from Transept Trail. Unable to come to terms with their tragic deaths, the woman took her own life, and her spirit continues to wander the trail where she once searched in vain for her beloved husband and son. There were just 2 of the more than 700 people who have died at the Grand Canyon since the middle of the 19th century. The lodge where the woman died burned in 1932, and witnesses claim to have seen her walking among the flames. One door in the rebuilt lodge slams shut every time it's left open. Aaron Ralston's story was shared with the world in the 2010 film 127 Hours, and according to The Guardian, it needed no embellishment. In 2004, Ralston headed out for what he thought was going to be an 8-hour hike, covering about 13 miles through Utah's Blue John Canyon. When he accidentally knocked loose an 800-pound boulder and found his hand pinned beneath it, he had the bare minimum he needed to survive. Search and rescue veteran Rex Tanner talked to National Geographic about the incident, and while he had high praise for Ralston, he was also quick to point out that the hiker had made a huge error. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. Ralston was only too aware of this, and saw only one solution to his situation: to amputate his own arm. The skin was just the beginning, and he went to break through his bones by throwing himself against the rock and snapping off that part of his arm he couldn't cut through. Ralston says that the whole process of removing his arm took about an hour, and by that time, he'd already been trapped beneath the boulder for 5 days. After tying a tourniquet, he scaled a 65-foot cliff and started what he knew would be a 10-hour hike to safety. He was aided by a group of hikers until they were found by a search and rescue helicopter. Ralston has since gone back to the place he was trapped, saying, "I touch it and go back to that place, remembering when I thought about what's important in life." In 1991, Erica and Helmut Simon were on holiday in the mountains on the border between Italy and Austria. When they headed out for a hike on September 19th, they probably never expected to find a body, let alone the 5,300-year-old remains of a murder victim. Otzi the Iceman was recovered 4 days after he was first spotted by the unsuspecting hikers, and his murder investigation was officially reopened by Italian authorities in 2017. According to the BBC, it took a decade before researchers found the arrowhead that killed him. It was still in his back. When Munich Police Department's Detective Chief Inspector Alexander Horn took a look at the evidence, he concluded Otzi had been caught unaware when he was shot from a distance of at least 100 feet. Given that he was found alongside his weapons and had defensive wounds on his hands, it led Horn to speculate he'd fought with his killer earlier, then was ambushed. Even more surprising were the findings published in 2019 via National Geographic. A study of the mosses and pollens around Otzi and in his digestive tract showed he had done quite a bit hiking himself in the days leading up to his death. Although he was discovered at a site 10,530 feet above sea level, he had ingested pollen from 8,200 feet about 33 hours prior. About 10 hours before he died, he was at around 4,000 feet, meaning his last hours were spent in a frantic climb.